So your soil is in good shape, and now you've been harvesting. If so, you're probably also working to keep any excess grain stored in the proper way. I spoke with Dr. Ken Hellevang, who is an agricultural engineer with North Dakota State University Extension. He tells us there are some important general rules to follow, and that begins with keeping the grain dry and at the proper temperature.
Yes, those are the two key points with grain storage at any time or under any condition, is finding the appropriate moisture content to store the grain for whatever period of time we're storing, and then controlling the temperature. And controlling the temperature is a critical piece. It's just as important as the moisture content.
And how often is the grain going to need to be checked, and what should a farmer be looking for when they do check it?
My recommendation on checking the stored grain is to do it at least every 2 weeks initially. Once we've gone through all the cool down, once we know what the history is of that stored grain, once we're at winter storage temperatures, then we can probably stretch that out to 3, maybe even 4 weeks during the coldest part of the winter. But then starting late winter, we should be going back to every 2 weeks. There's just so much that can change in our stored grain within a 2-week or 3-week time frame.
So if you follow all the rules, take all the precautions, is there a maximum time that you're going to be able to store the grain, or is it eventually going to go bad?
If you store the grain properly and manage it properly, we can store long term. But there's a lot of details that need to be taken into consideration. If we think of corn, we can store 15% moisture corn over winter, but if we're going into storing during the summer months, warmer spring temperatures, we really need to be thinking of 13 to 14% moisture. Same thing with soybeans. We can store 13% moisture soybeans over winter, but anything that's going into spring and into summer temperatures really needs to be down closer to 11%. And with soybeans, controlling that temperature is even more critical than it is with corn. We have oil that the quality is impacted with warmer temperatures. So the goal going through spring and into summer should be to keep it as cool as we can.
And I know that you've written a lot on this topic. I would assume you're probably not a huge fan of storing grain outside. Would I be correct in that?
That would be very correct.
And why is that exactly?
And the example that I typically use is that if we have an uncovered pile and we get just a 1-inch rain on that pile, if we were to concentrate the moisture into the top foot, we're looking at increasing the moisture content by 9 percentage points. So again, using corn as an example, we're going from 15 up to 24% moisture, and we're going to have spoilage at that moisture content. I rarely see an outdoor pile where we don't end up with 2 to 3 feet of spoiled grain in the top portion. Now, if we cover the pile with an appropriate tarp or cover, we aerate that pile to control the temperature, we have dry grain going into storage, then we can store in a pile outdoors. Same thing is true with the grain bags. If the grain is dry going into storage, particularly with corn, we can store that into the next summer as long as we're at roughly 13% moisture. We also want to run those bags north-south so we get even solar radiation on that pile or on that tube. Soybeans, I really discourage people from storing into the next spring and summer because we have no way of controlling that temperature.